All right, I think we're live. Welcome everyone, it's Anna Runyon, and we are huge fans here at Classy Career Girl of online learning and adding more skills to your resume, which is why I'm excited to introduce you to our special guest today. Adda Birnir is the founder and CEO of Skillcrush, and that is an online technical skills platform designed specifically for women. And she founded Skillcrush in 2012 with one specific mission in mind: to give students the technical skills they needed to enter high-earning and flexible careers. And Adda taught herself to code, and she grew her company right after that as well. So I'm excited to learn from her today. Thanks, Adda, for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, our community is super excited to listen to this. I wanted to give a shout out to Zari because she is in the All Access Career Blueprint.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so they definitely have heard of your brand, so that's exciting as well. So let's start out by talking about what inspired you to take this idea and turn it into a business.
Yeah. So it definitely, I think it's really important for everyone out there who's thinking about starting a business to know that it did not come out fully formed. Like what it is today kind of, exceeds a lot of my greatest hopes and dreams. It really started as a side project, to be totally honest with you. So at the time I was running a software services company where I would build websites for clients. And I was really interested in trying to build my own company where I had my own product that I was selling. And we were playing around with a couple of different ideas, most of them sort of B2B software. And what was then called Digital Divas was this side project we were doing just out of kind of love. And it came from the fact that my business partner and I were both women working in tech and feeling there was all these opportunities and we were making great money and it was really exciting work to be doing, but there was not a lot of women. And it really felt like the way it was presented was not representative of our experience of being in tech. And so we were trying to sort of brainstorm and think about how can we talk about technology and talk about it to an audience that doesn't normally think about it or talk about it or see it as something that's accessible to them, and put it in terms that they would really understand and appreciate and see themselves in. And that was kind of the very sort of gem of the idea. And then it definitely felt like it sort of took a life of its own. And we just kept kind of following the thread and building it up slowly over time. And then ended up, obviously we can go into much greater details of how exactly we went from it being a side project to being a business, but that was really the inspiration for it.
Okay. So what's really the first step if someone wants to learn more about coding and getting into the tech industry?
Yeah. I mean, the first step, obviously, if you're interested, that's you're in a great spot. And the thing that's really amazing about the internet and what's happening today and the growth of this industry online, it's amazing to think that when I started thinking about creating Skillcrush, all these, none of the boot camps existed. Codecademy didn't exist. You know what I mean? The only game in town at that point was W3C schools. So the good news is there's a ton of free online resources. We have an awesome boot camp if people are interested. But I think, really the thing that you need to do is just start to get familiar with kind of the lay of the land and the lingo. There's a lot of jargon in tech. That's something that we work really hard to kind of make accessible to people who are new to tech, because I think it can be really intimidating. Mm-hmm. But I really think that, a lot of it is just about sort of, getting sort of an understanding of what tech is all about, starting to think about how it could be useful to you, starting to get excited about the opportunities. And I think that'll sort of give you a lot of the motivation to dive a little deeper. And in terms of there's so many classes, I would just really recommend that people check out our 10-day boot camp, check out our blog. We publish a lot of online or free ebooks and stuff like that help sort of understand, what are the different options in terms of learning to code and what's right for you.
Yeah, I think the intimidation factor is pretty big for sure. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because it kind of came up. Someone in our community, Amy, she asked, I'm really interested in an interview. I'm not in tech. And so she said she hears all these job titles, these descriptions, but she doesn't know what they actually mean. What does X do? How do you find out about the job descriptions? How do you make sense of the job descriptions?
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I just want to say that she's not alone. I mean, I even look at job titles sometimes and I'm like, what is that? What, who? And honestly, like there's not a lot of standardization. Like you'll see the same job title with different skills and you'll see different job titles with similar skills. You know what I mean? It's confusing. And I think a lot of that comes from like, it's a really new industry. So it's still kind of like figuring a lot of stuff out. In terms of like learning about different jobs, this is just something that like, yeah, we write about a lot on the blog. So we talk about like, what's the difference between like a visual designer versus a graphic designer versus a web designer? Because there's all these little nuances. I think it's really, I wouldn't get like too stressed out about the differences, but I do think it's obviously good to basically to start to begin to understand like the roles that different people play in the production of a website or software, product. So understanding that, like a backend developer is more focused on, the code and the structure of things versus a UX designer is thinking a lot more about like, what are the people who are using the software thinking about and feeling as they're going through it and that kind of stuff, and starting to understand that a little bit better.
Yeah, I think it's helpful just to have some background and just to know you're not alone too. Like, is it just me that doesn't understand this?
Not at all. No, yeah.
So how did you come up with your business model and your marketing plan, and how did it grow so quickly?
I'm like, has it grown quickly? It's one of those things where it's like, in retrospect, it was fast, but it actually like, when you're going through it, it feels like slow. So I think that like a good illustration I have for this is kind of like something that happened very early in the process of the company. And it kind of taught me, it was like how I learned something really fundamental that has like totally shaped the way I build my business. And that's that when we first launched our first kind of like, I think it was like our first product. And what it was was going to be a package of 5 tutorials, but we launched the first 2 or 3, I forget, honestly, for free. And the idea was that then you would buy the second, I think it was the first 2 for free. And then the second group, the last 3 you would pay for. And we got about 5,000 people to sign up for it, which in retrospect is probably actually like not that bad. But I think that was in the days of like when Codecademy had gone like crazy viral. So I was like, 5,000 people, it's terrible. Mm-hmm. And so I was really nervous that nobody was going to pay for it, the second group of tutorials. So I started doing some customer discovery, which was basically just like haranguing anyone who had signed up to talk to me. It was like anything I could do if someone, to like get them on the phone with me and talking to me, or even just like emailing back and forth. And I started to ask them questions about, like what was their problem? Like why were they interested in learning to code? What was motivating them? What was their experiences? And I had read somewhere that what you want to do in those interviews is you want to ask the people how they've tried to solve the problem for themselves. And this is kind of like a classic business question that you ask customers. And the idea is that they call it the painkiller test. And the question is your solution a painkiller or a vitamin? And a painkiller is like absolutely necessary. You're like, I'm in so much pain, I'll like pay anything for a painkiller. But the idea is that a vitamin is kind of a nice to have. And so for your business to be really viable, you really should be a painkiller, not a vitamin. And the theory is that if people haven't tried to solve the problem for themselves, then they're not in enough pain to actually pay for it. So that's like how you gauge it. So basically what I did is I asked people if they had tried to learn, what I asked people was how they had tried to figure out what to learn to code. So basically they were like, I want to learn to code because I want to change my career. But my problem is that I don't know what to learn. It's very similar to the question you were just asking me, right? Mm-hmm. So my question was, okay, how did you go about trying to solve that problem for yourself? And what I found was that the group kind of split evenly, and it split between people who had Googled for the answer to that question and then people who had asked a friend. And then the people who succeeded in learning to code and the people who didn't succeed also split along those same lines. So it was like everyone who asked a friend had succeeded in learning to code and everyone who had asked Google didn't succeed. And that was kind of an aha moment for me of realizing the importance of having a person to talk to, and the need for that. Which then led me to offer that as a service. And so when I sold those 3 tutorials, I packaged it with myself as an instructor who would answer people's questions, and launched it, and it sold out, and it was crazy. But I think like what I really got out of that experience was the importance of this sort of iterative approach of talking to customers, better understanding their problem, using that to influence my product and packaging, like features, and also how we positioned it, and then launching. And then it was just kind of, it's been really, honestly, 5 years of like rinse and repeat of that.
That's so good. I hope people don't miss that because it's so important. And sometimes you just skip over that market research part. And I know I've launched a lot of courses too. And the ones that didn't succeed are the ones like I think people are going to like, but I didn't actually do the market research and everything that you're saying, and it like flopped, right? So I think that's so important to go back to your customers too and to ask those questions. And it shows that your next course then took off because of it too. So
yeah. I mean, we've made the mistake so many times of launching stuff without testing it. And
I think we all have. That's like a common thing.
Yeah, because you're like, you have some success and you're like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Like, I can totally do this. But what I will say, like, I really believe at this point that like our hit rate, it's not totally accurate because a couple of times we have hit without doing market research, but I would say our hit rate is like 0. However, in terms of just going out the gate and not doing that customer discovery. But I will say that what I find is that we're never far off. And so I think like people are afraid to do that kind of thing because they're afraid that they might discover that they're like completely off. But in my experience, it's usually we're like 10 to 15 degrees off of where we need to be. And we just have to like slightly course correct to really hit the winner. But so the answer to the like marketing and business plan, like unfortunately there's no easy answer to it. It's a constantly iterative process. We're still figuring out our business plan. Obviously like the questions I'm asking and things I'm figuring out are more sophisticated at this point, you know? But it really just is an iterative process of starting with something really small. I mean, the first question you have to ask is like, will anyone pay you for anything related to your product? You know, like the first thing I sold was a $5 PDF. And that was never going to support my business. But the reason we did that was that we wanted to test whether our audience was monetizable at all. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to start, you have to start with really, really basic questions and kind of be like, okay, we passed that one. Great. Now can we charge like, you know, I think the next product we sold was $75. And honestly, like in retrospect, it would have been very hard to build this business, or like I couldn't have built the business I have now charging $75 for everything. Mm-hmm. So you just keep sort of like increasing the price, increasing the offering, you know, adjusting.
Yeah. It takes time being patient too.
Yeah.
So Kimoy asked a question. She says she loves your Skillcrush brand, and she launched her course because she wanted others to know that they can get into tech and demand of high rate with tech writing skills. But she'd love to know how you grew your team. How did you get the funds to pay for staff? Because she's doing everything herself, and she knows she won't scale to the Skillcrush level doing it alone.
Yeah, it's really hard. Everything about business is really hard. So if anyone's out there feeling like, oh, it's really hard, know that like it is really hard. And I don't think it's easy for anyone. So for myself, in terms of how I got money for staff, it started off with that I really just didn't pay myself for a very long time. And the way I got by was that I worked freelance. And so there was a whole year where I freelanced for the first 2 years of the business. I didn't go full-time at Skillcrush until the business was more than 2 years old. And, you know, there was a period where I worked 3 days a week for another company and 4 days a week for Skillcrush. And that was my life. And I think, yeah, I mean, there is a cart before the horse element to starting up a business. That's why startups are so hard. In that, like, you just kind of have to like, do a little bit of the impossible, you know, and kind of just like beat your head through the wall until like there's a hole. Which is like, I know this is like very positive and helpful. But it's just to say that, like, so in terms of literally how I hired staff to begin with, I would always just hire freelancers for small projects to start. And it was really just like any money that came in, I reinvested in the business. So I guess, like, you know, there's that, like, and all of my work was just for sweat equity. Like, I wasn't making any money with it. I mean, I kind of just did that until, I mean, we were able to build up, I think, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm just thinking like, oh, I think we got to probably like $10,000 or $15,000 of revenue a month. And at that point I hired a full-time person, my first full-time person, but I still wasn't getting paid. And I just kind of kept doing that. And it was like, every time we would see a bump in revenue, I would hire another person. And, you know, I think we were probably making, I'd have to look, but we were probably making like $50,000. No, we probably were making more than that. We're probably making like $75,000 before I was full-time at the company. So like, it's really hard. And you know, I just want to recognize that, like, I had a lot of support from my family, and like, they weren't, you know, paying for me, but like, certainly my boyfriend, who is now my husband, was like, you know, we were splitting expenses and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's not easy. It's hard.
Yeah, and I'm glad you say that too, because I think a lot of people think it happens so quick. And 2 years of working so hard and not taking a paycheck. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. What you see today is not where it started too. So thank you for sharing that too, and like keeping it real for everyone too, that it's not going to happen tomorrow. That huge paycheck.
Yeah, and also like it's important too that people know that, like, it wasn't like I was independently wealthy. Like, I made $22,000 one year, and that was just money I could make freelancing, you know? And it was like, and I, you know, thank God I didn't have children. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, there's a million different life circumstances that like a lot of people deal with that would have made that impossible. So I feel really fortunate that I kind of had, you know, was in a position where I had few enough expenses that I could do that for a year. You know, I couldn't have done it for much longer than that. But
yeah, so we have a lot of people who are doing that right now. Like, they're in the midst of like growing their business on the side of their day job. Do you have any like tips or recommendations for them? Because that was one of the questions JJ asked, is how did you build your company while still working your job, which would have been your freelancing thing on the side?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was fortunate, and this is something that came from having technical skills, frankly, was that when I freelanced, I was able to make a pretty substantial amount of money in like the hours that I worked. So, you know, I wasn't working a full-time job, which I think could be a little bit more challenging, because I did have like a fair amount of flexibility. Like, yes, I did work, I work 3 days a week, but that's obviously less than working 5 days a week. I will also say that, again, this is where it's like, it is a real commitment. Like, I think that, you know, I imagine, I was just with a friend of mine. So I'm in my early 30s, and like literally every person I've ever known had a baby this year. I think I counted like 14 friends. So I've been on like my voyage of like meeting everyone's baby. And I was recently in Texas with a very good friend of mine from high school, and she just had a baby, and she's 3 weeks old. And I was with her for the weekend, and it's just amazing, because it's an all-consuming like 24-hour. I mean, for anyone who's had a baby and is watching this, you know. And I kind of think that that's what having a startup is like, in a way, where it's totally all-consuming. Like, listen, like I didn't keep up with friends. I didn't like exercise. Like, I basically did nothing except for do my freelance job and work on Skillcrush. That is a totally unsustainable lifestyle. You cannot do that for very long.
Sure.
But I think, you know, it's important to recognize, like, that's what it took for me to be able to do it. Was not quite working full time, and then literally cutting everything except for my relationship with my boyfriend out of my life, frankly. I mean, I don't know. It's not totally true, but it's like effectively true.
Yeah, it's focusing on that vision of where you're going, and then making that commitment, and putting your priorities together too. Like, this became one of your top priorities.
Yeah, and also knowing that like it doesn't last forever. Right. So it's good to know, like, you know, like I think at the time I didn't know that. So I was kind of like, is this going to be my life for the rest of my life? And it wasn't, it's not what my life is like now. But it definitely, you know, it was not glamorous. There was nothing glamorous about starting a business.
So I want to shout out to some people who are here today. Jen is with us. Hey, Jen. Erin is with us. She says, hashtag skill crushing it.
Nice. I love it. Yeah, that's what we say.
Awesome. Okay. I was like, that must be, Adda will know what that is.
Totally. Yes. Erin's still crushing it. That's awesome.
Tamika says, hey, Adda. Welcome.
Hi, Tamika.
Sarah's with us. She says, hi, Adda. I'm a software engineer, and I'm very happy to know that Skillcrush was founded by a woman.
Oh, good.
Awesome. Yeah, Sarah's been doing a lot of great work in that area. So I want to ask you one more question. In our Classy Career Network, we're doing a focus on social media this month. And
Yes.
so we're talking a lot about growing our social media. So how did you grow your audience? It's a big question that we get. Like, how did you grow your audience online? Because that's a whole nother thing, building a company, but then you also have to build your audience as well. So
and they really go hand in hand. So I will say that for us, social media is not necessarily like a lead generation, meaning like it doesn't send us a lot of new people, and what we kind of use it for instead is really just engaging with our audience. So so that's really our approach to social media, is just like talking to our students, you know what I mean, like Erin, via different platforms, having that opportunity to sort of like check in with them, promote the work that they're doing. That's one of our favorite things. And just, you know, engage with them and talk to them and chat and all that kind of stuff. In terms of growing my audience in the more sort of material sense of the word, of like finding new people, that has been not so social media driven, but I think that like what our primary mode of building our audience is actually to create a lot of content for people. So a lot of downloadable guides, webinars, blog posts, that kind of thing, just like help people make that transition into feeling more comfortable with technology and understanding it, which I think in turn kind of feeds the social media side of our business, because it, you know, gives us a lot of sort of content and material to share on social media. If I have like one tip to give everyone, it would be to start an email list. That's been the best decision I ever made for my business, was doing that, because that just gives you that opportunity to talk to people and engage with them on a more ongoing basis, which I find to be a little stickier than social media. Like social media tends to come like secondary to that. Like email is kind of our primary mode of communication with our customers, and then social media is sort of like an extra kind of, you know, it's kind of like that one-on-one relationship versus like chatting with people at a party. Mm-hmm. So like they both have their place and are important, but it's a little bit less direct and personal, I think, in social media. So.
Yeah, I love that you say you use social media for engaging, because a lot of people think that that's where they go to sell and promote. And so it's a different mindset that you have that is crucial, I think, to growing your audience. And then I look at your YouTube too, and you do have like so much training and so much free stuff available there too. So if you guys are interested, check out their it's called the Skillcrush team, I think, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I would say like we really have not, in our experience, and I think this is consistent for other people too, like social media has not been a good sales vehicle. I would not encourage people to use that as a primary means of selling. That's not work for our business. And I think social media is too interactive for that. Like I think you really just want to use it for conversation. Mm-hmm, definitely. And building that relationship. So
awesome. So where can people find out more about the Skillcrush model and getting their education through there?
Yeah, just go to skillcrush.com. We also, very excitingly, have our podcast launching. It's maybe a little bit less educational and more sort of us kind of trying to think through kind of, you know, big issues in tech, like gender discrimination and remote work. That's a really popular topic among our students. You know, how another exciting topic we're taking on is age. So like, how do you transition careers late in life? Those kinds of things. But if you want to know more about that, you can go to skillcrush.com/podcast.
I bet you'll go into detail on like all the questions that were asked here too.
Yes. Yeah, totally. We'll do like half an hour on each one. Yeah. There's a ton of content on our blog. And if you have any specific questions about yourself and your personal situation, we do offer free career counseling sessions. You can do half an hour with one of our career counselors to talk to them about your personal situation, or just send us an email at hello@skillcrush. We love like everyone who's in our audience, whether they end up being a student or not, and we love to talk to you and help you through whatever situation you're in, and any questions that you have.
Awesome. I love it. Well, it was so great to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us today, Adda.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
We have one more out. I got to do a couple more shout outs because now because I did it, more people are jumping in. Julie says, thanks for being an inspiration, Adda.
Oh.
Haley says, great talk,
nice.
ladies. Sherry says, hello from South Carolina. Thank you both for being amazing inspirations.
Nice.
Latanya says, hi, ladies. I have no knowledge of what Skillcrush is, but I'm interested in learning about how to start a business in graphics. Awesome. Jan is with us. Max is with us. Latanya says, that's me starting very late in life with wanting to be a business owner. Well, you can do it. I hope
totally do it. We have an amazing student I always love to talk about, and she has this great Facebook group she started called Boomers in Business. So you might want to check that out. It's a really cool organization. So
I love it. Well, thank you everyone else for joining us as well too. It's so much more fun when people are live and there's like that interaction. So,
totally.
So thanks for carving out the time to watching this. We hope you guys found it helpful. And thanks, Adda, for being here.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. So does Zoom go directly to?
Yeah, so I have the webinar plan. So I pay it's like $40 a month.
Oh, amazing.
Go directly to like a Facebook page or a Facebook group, or you can share your screen, which is what I love. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Yeah. Cause I remember we did this it was probably like 9 months ago, I guess at this point time flies. And it was like, we had to rig some crazy system in order to get, so this is really cool.
So much easier. That's
awesome. Like,
yeah, I know. I don't even know. I think I just didn't do it before, but yeah, when I learned about this, it's really simple. All you do is you go live on Facebook. So there's really
very cool.
Yeah.
Did my team talk to you about other things that we could do together? I feel like there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah, I think they didn't, but I'm sure that there is for sure. Like getting a guest post up or like an article up, I think would be probably like the best start, something like that.
Sure.
Especially if you're starting your podcast or lots of.
I'm also thinking like we do a lot of webinars with our audience, and I actually think you'd be a great guest if you'd be up for something like that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
cool.
I'm all for it, and I wanted just to like meet you too, because I think we have just similar, kind of businesses too, and just like the education area. Ours is more like membership, so it's like that monthly. I don't know exactly what yours is, but it's always just good to meet other people in the online world who are like in the education field and geared towards women too. So
yeah, I'm really it's funny because I feel like we've tried to do like membership and ongoing subscriptions, and it hasn't worked for our business model. Talking about business models,
it's so different for everyone too. So
yeah, that's really cool though. Let me know, or actually no, I have a question for you. How long have you been doing it?
I started my blog in like 2010.
Okay.
So
nice.
I've done like coaching, and I've done courses and speaking and books and all that stuff. But finally I feel like, okay, we're at like the good spot where it's just, we have 2 membership sites. So, and that's why like your stuff kind of gears towards both of them. The first membership site is for women who are job searching. So that's where like,
I love the names of these.
Yeah, I love your career.
They're so good. I'm like totally on the new thing where I'm like, yeah, the name should be like really, like we used to do like kind of use technical names, and now I'm like, no, screw that. Your names are perfect.
Yeah.
I love it.
Once you find it, then it just clicks, and like you'll never like change it, But it's like finding that thing that works and stuff too. Yeah, and then corporate recipe plan is for women starting businesses too. So I do know like a lot of people are creating websites and stuff too. So I don't know if you have like that kind of training, or if you have people who can help people create their websites too. Like that could be.
I have a ton of that. Yeah, and that would be amazing, because that is something that we're trying to figure out with our students, is like how we can do a better job of getting them work afterwards. Like we do a lot of support in terms of like, coaching them, but we don't necessarily like bring them a lot of opportunities. I think that would be really cool. Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways. This is really cool.
Yeah, awesome.
Good for you.
Well, yeah, just send us an email. I think your assistant has my assistant's email.
Awesome.
It's like, oh, wow, this is like the next level, I guess, when the assistants are like coordinating everything.
Yeah.
It allows us to like do better with what we do. So I love it.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, of course. So we'll put it on, it's on the Facebook, Classic Girl Facebook page now. And then we'll put on the podcast and our YouTube channel, hopefully later on tonight. So
Cool.
awesome.
All right. Have a good one.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.